Hello and welcome to Great Train Layouts Live. I'm your host, Nick Oserak, and it's wonderful to be here with you on another nice evening for some model railroad track planning. And I cannot begin to tell you guys, how excited I am for tonight's stream. I always think we got a good one in store because that's always true to a varying extent, but this is a really good one. We're going to take a train to space. Well, not exactly, but we are going to build a railroad that has connections to space travel, the NASA Railroad. And we're going to start with how this idea began and getting ourselves in the spirit with some photos. But it's so good to have you along for the ride. Hello, Rich. Glad to see you here, Millennial Modeler, and Mikey. Good to have you guys on board. So, before we get to the plan, we're gonna set the scene because I feel like that helps to get into the spirit of what we're doing here. And just to show you how in the scene we're getting, I've got to turn my right shoulder. I've got my NASA shirt on. I've even got my Kennedy Space Center water bottle. That's right. See, a couple months ago, went on vacation to Florida. Took the auto train down to Florida, no less. As part of that trip, went to see the Kennedy Space Center, which helped to reignite my interest in the NASA Railroad, which I've had a long interest in general. So Kennedy Space Center, where NASA launches rockets. I think that goes without saying, but we went. So all these photos I'm going to show you to help set the scene are photos that I took from my vacation. So we have, I just have to remember which keyboard shortcut I have to change the photos in the slideshow. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I should say that what we're looking at right now is the vehicle assembly building. This is where the shuttle stack back in the, well, originally in the Apollo program, this is where the Apollo shuttles were, the Saturn V rockets for the Apollo program were assembled into their stack. Then it was used for the space shuttle program, and it's going to be used for the SLS program, which will bring us back to the moon. The photo doesn't quite do justice as to how large this thing is. That building is 525 feet tall. Those doors that you see on the left side of the photo, they take 45 minutes to open or shut. They are the, I think something like the largest doors in the world. And this is like the largest single-story building in the world. The stats on it, I mean, you could Wikipedia it, but it's hard to convey how big it is. You could see this thing from miles away. So this is where we're going to be focusing on the era of the space shuttle with our build tonight. So this is where the shuttle stack, which is the space shuttle, the extra tank, and the solid rocket boosters get assembled. This is a little bit of a glimpse from our tour bus of the NASA Railroad. You can see some of the administrative buildings as well as the line itself. Note how the ties, and we'll see this a little bit later, are not standard wooden ties. This is the capsule from Apollo 14 that is on display in the center. And then this is Jim Lovell's flight suit from Apollo 13. As in, yes, and I've already seen this in the comments, Houston, we have a problem. Or technically, it's Houston, we've had a problem. In real life, and the movie changed it a little bit. And I did watch the movie to also get in the spirit of this. So I'm very much on a NASA hype train. We're going to channel that energy into tonight's build. This is the Saturn V on its side, on display at the center. I want to say it's like 360 feet tall. It's astoundingly huge. And the amount of power that these things had. I mean, all you have to do is go to YouTube and watch videos of the launches. It's really cool to see. Now, this was my favorite part of the entire day. I love Kennedy Space Center. We had a great day there. But getting to see the Space Shuttle Atlantis was the highlight. This thing is, I just love the design of it. There's something that I find really awe-inspiring about looking at this. I also live not too far away from the Space Shuttle Discovery, which is at the Udvar-Hazy Center in outside of DC. So I get to see that one somewhat regularly. This was my first time seeing Atlantis, and boy, it just so gorgeous. Such an amazing piece of technology. And this is part of a shuttle stack. We've got the solid rocket boosters, which are the big white rockets on the sides, and the extra tank. And again, hard to contextualize. Size here is hard to convey, which is why we're building this layout in N scale. This is part of the rocket garden, which has examples of all of the rockets used in the early days of the space program. So you have Mercury and Gemini represented, and as well as Saturn 1, that one at the very bottom of the photo that's laying horizontally, and some more modern neat place. And yes, to Rich, your comment about did I ride the Space Shuttle Simulator? I did. It was really well done. I mean, everything at Kennedy Space Center. I could spend this whole. Maybe I'll talk about that more during the build about my time there. But I enjoyed it immensely. Our last photo before we get to the track plan, we talk about what we have going on with the NASA Railroad, is a photo of the NASA Railroad as it is today. This is part of the main line. As you can see, the rails are rusty because they do not get used regularly. The Space Shuttle program ran from 1981 in terms of the first launch until 2011. Since then, the NASA Railroad has been used infrequently, although it is in use today, but for still receiving solid rocket boosters for the new program and other components, but it's very hit or miss if you would see something. But I wanted to show this photo as again to kind of give you a sense of the lay of the landscape and what we're going to be trying to evoke in with the build. And note, as I think I said earlier, those concrete ties. We'll get into why the concrete ties are a thing. I know you guys want to see the track plan, but just to point that out, the NASA Railroad has some really interesting quirks about it, and we're going to get to explore them all when we go into our main scene here. This is the track plan. So this comes courtesy of, and I don't think I have the book on hand with me, because of course I don't, but it is from Railroads Go to War, which is a Kalmbach model railroader book written by Bernard Kempinski about railroads during times of war and how you would model that with different track plans. But there is a chapter at the end of the book specifically covering the NASA Railroad. And this plan is a 12 by 10 N-scale track plan designed to capture the essence of the NASA Railroad. Let's see. So, just catching up on your comments. YouTube fan, slightly off topic. You were at York Train Show. Good. Glad you had fun there. So, let us talk about the plan as a whole and talk a little bit about the NASA Railroad and its functions. So, NASA Railroad was built at the same time as the Kennedy Space Center, off and on, but around the same time. Because obviously you have this huge facility that needs a lot of resources. So you have JJ Yard at the bottom here, and let me make sure that you can see my mouse because I'm not sure you can see my mouse. But JJ Yard at the bottom is where the railroad interchanges with the Florida East Coast. That yard does belong to NASA, but if you see the to Florida East Coast Railroad connection, that link leads to a Y, which is where the interchange happens. Okay, you are seeing my mouse, so oh, there it is. Okay, so we've got the connection here. We've got JJ Yard where we pick up and drop off cars. We've got the JJ Bridge. This is a bascule, well, not bascule, but this is a lift bridge. that connects to uh, Merritt Island, which is this large island of which Kennedy Space Center is a part. Suspect siding is a siding that was used for the construction of the landing strip at Kennedy Space Center for when the shuttles were landing. That then ended up being used for, it was used for delivering construction materials, later for storing solid rocket boosters. We have the rotation processing and surge facility, which is where the solid rocket boosters are taken to be rotated, lifted off of railroad cars, rotated vertically, and then shipped to the vehicle assembly building over here, which is where the stack, where the SRBs get assembled and the stack as a whole is made. We've got our shuttle on a mobile launch pad. We'll cover all of that. Yes, I've got a space shuttle. That's going to be fun to show you guys. Liquid fuel depot, warehouse, the engine house for the NASA Railroad, and storage tracks. As well as an interchange. It isn't labeled on here, but this backtrack is an interchange with a separate part of the complex, which is dedicated to the Titan missile program. So there's some interchange that happens with an Air Force base that's not exactly, it's kind of sort of connected to the Space Center as a whole. So much to talk about, so much we could geek about with space and trains. Let's get to the fun of building this, and that's going to be starting with laying the track. And most of our track is going to be concrete for this build. So I'm going to get my track out here. And if you're new to one of these live streams, well, first of all, welcome. And secondly, this is the connect the dots portion. This is basically the world's most flexible flex track, as I like to call it, in that you can make it do everything you want, including things you probably don't for the sake of realism. But it's the kind of thing that you spend enough time in this simulator and you learn how to make it do what you want it to do. So the thing with this, the concrete track. So the story with the concrete track is the NASA Railroad, when it was constructed, it was built by the Florida East Coast Railroad, and they used, they were single tracking their main, and so they had all this extra rail and ties, and so they repurposed that for building the railroad. So wooden ties, conventional rail, it was great. It was fantastic until it wasn't, because being so close to the ocean meant that those ties rotted fairly quickly. So, golly, I don't remember the date, but there is a date, and I'll talk more about it if you want to research the railroad more, where you can look. But I think it was early 80s. I think it was about the time the shuttle program was coming online, that the railroad was rebuilt with concrete ties for everything except for the switches. So we are, for the stream, we might just do everything as concrete. Once I release this, I will be doing my best, and probably succeeding to some extent, in having the concrete, the turnouts replaced with wooden track. If we have time tonight, we might do that. We shall see how we are doing on that front. But for now, we'll make everything concrete. So this is JJ Yard again. This is where Florida East Coast interchanges with the NASA Railroad. So for our era, for talking specifically about the shuttle program, I'm going to check one window and make sure everything's good there. Yep, okay. So for the shuttle program, the solid rocket boosters were manufactured out in Utah, but there needed to be a way to transport them to Florida, and these are large large cylindrical objects that don't lend themselves easily to trucking. So somebody at some point realized that the best way to go about, let's see, what trestle track I didn't bookmark one for that. But somebody realized that hauling them by rail made the most sense. So probably the most, if you Google search NASA Railroad, what you're going to see an image of is cars of solid rocket boosters. So the solid rocket boosters are transported in 8 sections per rocket, plus a couple of specially built cars for the skirt around the bottom, as well as the cone on top. I want trestle or I want bridge. I want. There we go. Oh, bridge is probably what I want. Bridge 12, maybe? I am looking for my bridge girder track. I think what I want is... Yeah, I don't want those because I'm actually going to need to make a custom base for it. Yeah, but maybe we'll do that. Not that one. Sorry, guys. I've had everything bookmarked except for the trestle track. I don't want one that actually has the... Oh, yeah, we'll make that do for now. I might change that later, but we're going to make that work for now. Except, can I connect that to bridge itself? Well, while I'm digging through this, I can at least talk about the bridge. So this is JJ Bridge. It is a lift bridge, of which this is a pretty halfway decent stand-in. Okay, good. That is what I wanted. We'll make that work for now. I might swap that out in the final. And yeah, so this is a lift bridge that's normally open except for when the railroad needs it. And then there's the train stops, there's a switch to lower it down, and then the train can cross, and there's a 5-minute timer that detects if the train is occupying the bridge, and if it isn't after 5 minutes, it raises back up. And again, if you search NASA Railroad, the Google search, this is probably the image you're going to find first and foremost is a train crossing this bridge with solid rocket boosters. Suspect sighting. There's a story to why it's called suspect sighting. I forget. But I should maybe give some time to talking about where I get this knowledge from, and why you would think that the NASA Railroad might actually be a really hard thing to model, but it's not as hard as you would think, because in some ways, I mean, is there going to be some scratch building involved? Of course. But the thing that actually lends itself well is that there is and isn't a lot of information on it. So there's not, I've tried to find information on its operations, and some of it is more obvious than others. I will say that Bernard's book, Railroads Go to War, which covers the railroad, it is a good source of information, and it does cover a fair amount in there. However, so not kind of hit or miss as far as it comes to operations. But in terms of the infrastructure, in 2012, after the shuttle program shut down, there was a study that the HAER, don't ask me what it stands for, but it's a government agency that basically um, does surveys of historical sites, um, and these are then added to the public record. And so at some point, somebody said, "Hey, now that the shuttle program's done, maybe we should be looking to do to create some sort of like preserve this site and some of the artifacts as remnants of the shuttle program, essentially, as best I could tell. I'm not clear on what led to the study, but the point is that there's this public study out there that is over 100 pages long that goes into the history of the railroad, has photos of the construction of it, talks about the infrastructure, gives very detailed information on the size of buildings, the details with the bridge, makes it approachable. And then that's not even to get into like the amount of documentation that exists about space shuttles and so forth. So there's a good amount of information out there that isn't too hard to find when it comes to if you were looking to scratch build things and so forth. Which obviously this build would require a fair amount in some ways, and in other ways you'd be surprised as to what you could find kits of. I'm just getting my straight sections in here. And then I'm kind of using them as my reference points for the curves. So we are building this as an N scale, and of course, could you turn this into an HO, like double the size of it and make it an HO 10 by or 20 by 24? You could. You absolutely could. But I will say it is that vehicle assembly building, which we're going to get into buildings once I've got the track in place. The vehicle assembly building, even in N scale, I think it comes to like 3 feet high if you're doing it to scale. The infrastructure here is large, so there is something to be said for doing it. But you could always take scenes from this and turn it. Okay, so rotation processing and surge facility. So as I mentioned earlier, this is where the solid rocket booster segments would be unloaded, rotated, and then transported to the vehicle assembly building where they'd be turned into stack. This is also where, so once the shuttle launched, the SRBs separate from the shuttle. They land in the ocean. They get retrieved and brought back here and disassembled and put back onto rail cars to go back to Utah. Really amazing system. I mean, the more... I think if I wasn't a rail fan, being a space fan... I mean, to be clear, I am a space fan. But trains are the number one thing I geek out about. But I will say that the space history is the kind of thing that I would if I wasn't into trains, I'd be going all in on space. I love the science behind space exploration. I love the technology. I love learning about the physics involved with planets and celestial bodies, and I love the idea of the exploration of the unknown. I mean, 2001: A Space Odyssey is one of my favorite films. I could go on a lot about space. Not as much as I could go on about trains, but I could still go on a lot. So that's why I'm so glad to have you guys here to be part of this experience of going on and on. But of course, I do encourage you to, if you're watching live, to be part of the conversation, or even not. If you're watching this after the fact, do drop a comment and let me know what you think of what we're doing here. yes, there's there's so many niches to um, the science of space and space exploration. So much, and I love it. I love it a lot. So this is a great way if you're like me and you love both space and you love trains. Great way to make kind of a melding of those interests. Always nice to find those intersections like that. And then over here, so there's also this document that I'm referring to, which if you search, how do you find it? Well, if I thought I had, I would have linked it in the comments of the video. Maybe I'll do that after the videos, after the live stream's done. But if you also just search, I think it's linked on the Wikipedia article for the NASA Railroad in the sources section. You should be able to find it there, and it covers a lot of this information. And there's some, I learned a lot from that document. It's very well compiled and interesting details about things like the time that NASA bought an oddball hopper car that was going to go to scrap because they needed to transport some kind of component that was very irregularly shaped, and it saved them from having to do it via road. I mean, so many needs. I think that's all our track in place. Yeah. So I'm going to turn off the base map layer. And this is how excited I was. So, those of you who watch regularly know that a lot of times I'll save doing the dig holes and the floor and stuff until afterwards. But tonight I've got all that in place. So once we're done building this tonight, everything will be done. So this is going to be a fun one. Let me see. Wait, where did my bridge track go? Oh, there it is. It just... the LODs on that are a little not great. I'll definitely want to replace that in a little longer. But we'll make do for now. Because I want to keep the show going. So, Hi, Tucker. Cat cameo. This is Tucker. I don't know if he's been on a live stream before. Say hi to the folks at home, boy. All right. So now that we have the track in place, we're going to get to the buildings. We'll turn on our base maps. And another thing that's great about NASA Railroad is you could easily go to Google Maps, and there's a lot of things you could see from Google Maps when it comes to the structures. Starting from JJ Yard, we've got a nice little yard office here. This case, it might be more of like a security shack, but we've got that over here. Suspect sighting in this. Not clear what this is meant to be. The railroad does have some public crossing. The track definitely doesn't cross the landing, so I'm gonna say this is a public crossing, simply because we don't have any of those anywhere else, and I'd like to have one. Or maybe I'll put the crossing in that direction. Let me get a yarn road up, and I think that's going to be not the bridges. Yeah, we'll just do a nice. Not that. There we are. That's the one I want. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit tricky to work in terms of how... But I think if we put it here and then we curve it off before the... before the water. It's a little bit stretching how things actually look there. But I think it works good enough, and that way then we get a crossing in there. Because there's a few crossings, and I'd like to have one represented. We've got our crossing. Then, so for the RPSF, I don't have the actual structure for that. We're going to use a placeholder. That said, just today somebody messaged me and said, "Hey, you're building the NASA Railroad. Well, here's some structures I've been working on." He hasn't done this one yet, but I will show off his buildings in just a second. So this is our placeholder RPSF. Which way did I want it? Yeah, I wanted it facing the way that I had it. So it's going to be our placeholder. It's a little bit not the right look, but it's close enough. So before this gets released, I'll be replacing that. Then the liquid fuel I had picked out. How did I pick that for that? Oh, yes, these storage tanks. This was a little tricky to figure out because this has changed. I couldn't find any photos of it during the shuttle era because obviously everybody's fascinated with the vehicle assembly building. But basically, we're assuming that this is a place where we're bringing liquid fuel and probably other chemicals. We've got a couple of structures that with, and yeah. So we've got those. I'll probably add another building for that, but I'm not going to overly worry about that now because time for one of our first big. Maybe I'll end on that one. That's the exciting one to end on. Over here we've got a one-track engine stall. Put that here. Probably have to adjust the track a little bit. Not the exact building, but something pretty similar to this. I'm going to put it there. Make sure that we've got enough clearance that our trains are going to be able to come around it. We'll shorten the siding to there. So. And then our storage shed is going to be... Oh. Is that the one that I meant to... Yes, this is what I was planning to use for. I will admit that I'm not confident that this is exactly accurate, but it's one of the things where there's some areas where you can find tons of photos for what you need, and there's some areas where it's kind of admittedly hard, and this is one of those areas. So if you've got material, or know more than I do, which is certainly possible, do let me know. Because obviously, I don't guarantee that the final product will be 100% accurate, but I do want it to have the right look and feel. So that's going to be our unloading shed with some storage tanks on hand. We'll also probably want to add a road here too. And then there'll be a lot of smaller detailing work that I'm sure I'll be doing off well. But goal for today, for now, is just get the broad strokes of it right so that you're getting the impression of what this is supposed to look like. So, and then probably going to end up using parking lot kind of stuff, like just having this all a paved texture, something along those lines. Probably also a lot of fences, because there's a lot of security fences in a lot of places. So, last but not least, the moment you've been waiting for, the vehicle assembly building. And as I say, it is hard to describe how large this thing is. Nope. Why are you showing that? Oh, because I filter on. So, this is the vehicle assembly. It looks like this. It is just humongous. And I'm going to try to line it up like so. It is big, big. Big, big building. I mean, just 525 feet tall. It is large. And you'll see how large it is in comparison. I'll put a Saturn V for comparison in a moment, and then we'll see the shuttle stack. But it is big. we've got the vehicle assembly building, courtesy of Howie, who just sent it to me today, so thanks for that, Howie. And then we've got the launch control center, which I'm going to be a little bit freelance about how I place this here, because the plan doesn't actually call for this to be part of it, but come on, this is a cool looking building. This very much adds to the look and feel. So I don't know if I want to place it here where I'm blocking the tracks. That feels kind of not like what I should be doing. To be clear, in real life, the tracks don't actually go through the VAB. They go by it, but yay for selective compression. So do I want this here? Maybe I do. I'm not 100% settled on that, but I like the presentation of that a lot. So I'm probably going to leave it there, like so. So those are our main... Oh, and I forgot to do that. I got distracted by the building. I need another... Turn off this. Oh, yeah, this is the one I need. Large steel shed that is going to go like so. And then I just need to make... Well, I can make... So... There we have it, the buildings of the NASA Railroad. Nick, you don't have a rocket yet. I know, but I want to build up to the rocket. I want the we're gonna build up to the rocket. We'll get there. So we're gonna turn off our base maps layer and just see how that looks. How everything seems in proportion with itself. And I like how that looks. Do I want to move the building a little bit closer? Yes, I do, because then I can get those doors to line up. That's a nice convenience to do that. So we'll put that here, and then I'll just extend those roads to that they go right up to the building. And so, while we're on the subject of these crawlers, so these are the roads for the crawler. This is what the crawler uses to transport the spaceships from the VAB to the launch pads. And the thing with this road is that this is also a case where we don't have to just simulate loads in terms of solid rocket boosters and the like. We do have the ability to simulate repairs to the road. So repairs have been made to the road. And guess what's a great way to bring in a ton of gravel? Or actually, I think limestone is the base of this. Rail cars. So, we've got the VAB. We've got the crawler road. We've got the RPSF. I get that acronym. It's amazing how many acronyms exist in NASA lexicon. Everything seems... Yep, RPSF. I got that right. So, I'm digging this already. Next up, we're going to bring the walls in. Now, this is something that I did off stream just to save myself some time, and because when we play with this, I really want it to... I want to play with something that feels closer to done than we're able to do sometimes. And now that I see that, I'm going to need to adjust my fascia by a wee bit. Go to my fascia and just move these like so. So. Yeah, looks good to me. Okay, next, I want to do the backdrops. So the backdrops, I've got trees. So, obviously, this is a very flat area. Oh, and let me make sure I'm putting them on the right layer, because knowing me, I put them on the wrong layer. So, interesting. Wait, square up those walls. I'll worry about that later. So, very flat area. Really no hills to speak of. You're right next to the ocean, pretty much. But you still have a lot of trees on Merritt Island. It's a very wooded area. I mean, to give you context, it's so wooded. Um, there's also canals there, which is kind of an interesting feature, and we'll see if we can kind of build that in, which we're going to use as our backdrop throughout the NDFS. So, while I'm building this, I should ask you guys if you have a favorite movie involving space travel or space in general. Is it Star Wars? Is it Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Are you like me and you love 2001: Space Odyssey? Would love to know your thoughts on that. I was listening to this song, and you could tell I was excited by this live stream because I put together a whole new playlist for it. And this song is making me think of Tears in Rain by Vangelis from the Blade Runner soundtrack, which is not inherently a space movie. It's just a great science fiction film. But that led me to thinking about it. Okay, so we have... Oh, and I need my last wall up here. We'll bring it way back here. And then we'll lower it down. Flip forward like so. Oh, I realized I didn't necessarily explain what this building is. So this is the these are so this is where you've probably seen in the movies where there's all the tiered computer terminals and everybody's got their different thing that they're in charge of for Florida. And obviously there's the Houston, but this is launch control. At some point, then launch control hands off the mission to Houston. Oh, hey Bernie, glad that you could join us. So Bernie can correct me on whatever I'm getting wrong about his plan or the NASA railroad in general. So we have our trees up, which give it... I mean, honestly, this is about as much backdrop as you need. Sometimes the challenge with Train Z is that you want to have these elaborate backdrops that are hard to do. But honestly, you look at... if you go to Google Street View and you plop yourself on the road at the Space Center, it's blue sky if you've got a sunny day and trees. So Bernie's plan, and now that he's here, he might be able to tell me a little bit more about this. He's got this listed as a warehouse, and I'm not quite sure if the idea operationally is just you put the warehouse in and you block the line with cars or what. I feel like I need another office building, though. Just because we have a little bit of extra space. So Bernie can tell me on what he was thinking with regards to that space. In the meantime, we'll just see if I have an handy that kind of matches the aesthetic of these. We want something that's very new looking. If I have one on hand. I don't want to spend too much time looking for one. But yeah, kind of like this. I'll take that. Just a little something for here. And then we could do a parking lot with cars. And probably make that 2 stories. Just to make it a little... I mean, this 2-story building just looks absolutely puny in comparison to the VAB. That VAB just is... As I say, it's unreal how large it is. William Babcock Oak. Your Empire Strikes Back is your favorite space movie. Good choice. Classic. It's been a long time since I've watched Empire Strikes Back. I probably need to do a rewatch. Okay, so that's going to be our buildings. We've now done our backdrop. Do I want to do ground textures next? I think so. I want to do ground textures, and then I want to see what kind of time that leaves us as far as the as far as details like the parking lots and fences and stuff. I suppose I could get fences up. Sure. And I found a good one recently. Found a really good one that I'm using for another project. It has like the high security Y barbed wire kind of stuff. It's this one. Nope. Great idea. Small model. That's the one. That's what we want. Something that's nice and pointy. A lot of these throughout. We're going to have one. Let's put the fences up. Since we're kind of so we would have a fence here, and I suppose I could put that here to represent the division between where the yard property starts. So I'll just put that down there, and then I will put fence right there, and probably look for a gate pole while I'm at it, because this I can't afford to off because we're not going to have any trains going through there. I was talking with somebody whose parents actually got to accompany the moves of the solid rocket boosters, because up until the mid-2000s there was actually okay, looks like we're connected again. Sorry about that, guys. My internet is not stable, much as I wish it was. Okay, so we're gonna start in JJ with the textures and work our way up. And I'm gonna reference Google Earth for this because one of the things with Google Earth is you could just kind of glance and be like, okay, we've got, I mean, basically it's dirt and then it's trees. And I probably should do some 3D trees, but I'll likely leave them as all 2D until we need to. So, this is a base. Is that what I want? Yeah, that is what I want. This is going to be our base. We're going to put that through pretty much here, and then we'll use some variations. And then it turns into sand and rock around here. So basically up to here. This is going to be our base, and then I'll spam some other things on it, and then we'll ballast the tracks and so forth. Hello, KR and Big Hoss. Will this be available on the download station? This will be available on GreatTrainLayoutsLive.com. Although first it'll actually be available on Patreon. Link in the description to Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you get early access to my layouts. In fact, this month I've not only uploaded one, I've uploaded 2 layouts for you for early access. And you can download those today, and they'll be you get them a month before anybody else does. So go there, and then I'm not sure on that front just yet. Let me see if I have a PBR of sand. A lot of sand around here. Yep, I do. Perfect. That's going to be our access road. So, it goes off to here. And I'll need the track to here at some point. Figure that out eventually. Carrots are definitely tricky. In terms of making them look like there's stuff going on, even and there isn't. Although I will say, what was I gonna say? Oh, I need trees. Oh, and then that causeway starts there. Interesting. I do like that as a... Okay. So palm tree. Because yay for getting to do palm trees. I never get to do palm trees on my live streams. Now we get to do palm trees. Not just palm trees, but there are definitely palm trees. We'll do that for now. I will probably refine that off stream. But it gives us our sense of where that is, and then we are going to the water. Gonna our terraforming for the where that goes like so, and then this is all the causeway. And there's some pretty cool pictures online where you can actually see them constructing this causeway. In that, in the document that I've been mentioning, the HAER report from 2012. So Big Hoss, what was the name for that website? GreatTrainLayouts.com is where you can download the routes. Patreon is where you can get early access. And the link for that. Actually, link for both should be in the description, but at least the Patreon's in the description. Why is this train set in a ginormous bedroom? Because this is N scale. So it looks really big, but this is actually only about 10 by 12 feet. It is not super large. The book that this comes from, Railroads Go to War, which again, recommend getting a copy on eBay. Because I learned a lot about Civil War era railroads and World War II and trench warfare, and very, very well done book. Is it referencing the book? Oh, point is that all of the plans in there are pretty much designed for a 10 by 12 room, which I think is a neat kind of challenge to make. But a 10 by 12 is a good, that's a good template. I think that if you've got a spare room, even if it's in an apartment, chances are it's a 10 by 12. And just for the amount of stuff that we need to fit in here and the size. I mean, this, again, 3 feet tall in N scale. If I think my math is right on. Yes. Yeah, that's 3 feet tall in N scale. I mean, you're talking a whole yardstick for a building if you do it to scale. So if you did that at HO, that building would be 7 feet tall. I mean, it gets... You really do have to do N for this, unless you have a really tall space. Oh, and Bernie says he did this in N scale because the booster cars are available in N scale. I'm not sure the manufacturer. And also there was a model of the shuttle in 200 scale that would work for the Center Peninsula. Yeah. So, multitude of reasons why this lends itself to N scale. Back in the Shapeways days, I did see somebody had made the SRB cars as well for N scale. I gather it's niche, but man, it'd be kind of neat to see some ready-to-run HO scale SRB cars. Let me make sure I'm getting my dimensions right on where the water's supposed to... Oh, all the way back to the road. Okie dokie. On both sides? Yes. Alrighty. Doing my best to terraform here, so we don't have any complicated mountains. Kind of, I do like my coal mines and mountains streams. it is nice to do something that's more about the flat. I do dig that for a change of pace standpoint. And we've got the water coming in here, like so. So, I like how this is coming together. This makes me happy. So what is the causeway made of? I think the causeway is a lot of limestone, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, limestone and dirt. I mean, pretty much this, as we've got it. But I'll put the track texture in there, which I did. I think I did hard. I think that is designed to go with this one, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, there we go. Our light ballast color, we can just ballast that. We want it to be very thorough, very clean, very well maintained. Oh. It's interesting in that when you look at the Google Earth, there's a lot of yards, and admittedly, some of them I'm not entirely certain as to how they functioned. It's kind of hard to envision because even in there's the inclination to feel like, well, isn't all of the NASA Railroad basically just getting the SRBs into place? But that's not entirely the case. We've got our ballast in place. We'll wrap it around here like so. And then we need some kind of dark. I want to do that one. Let's do a BBR rock. Like so. That'll be our base. Or maybe this. Lighter than I expect to be. I want something that's a bit darker. White right looks a little too tiled. Yeah, we'll make that one work. This is going to be our base of the water. And then we'll do some different rocks for the sides of the causeway. Okay, our limestone bedrock to launch a mountain. Not sure what you mean by that. And then imagine powered rail. Someone called Friend Central. Got our base for the water here. Also be adding some supports to this part of the trestle. This part is more kind of like the adjacent, the bits next to the actual lift bridge part, kind of more like a highway bridge in a way. And I'll probably modify that a bit off stream, but we'll get it to at least look right. Wow, we're this. Add my more ballast here, like so. And then I want to do some rocks. I should probably do this part too, so I can do all that once. I'll grab this here and paste that. I'll probably get done with others, but at least this kind of covers the ground. So Merritt Island, which Kennedy Space Center is part of, one of the things that I enjoyed on my vacation was seeing the nature preserved element of it. Because there's actually a spot where you can get views of manatees that go in and out of the ocean, which is neat to try to see them. Lots of if you're into bird watching, lots of different species of birds. That was a fun afternoon that my wife and I went exploring that, and got to learn about things like mosquito control, because obviously you have this very marshy, swampy area. So NASA builds Kennedy Space Center only to realize, hey, we've got a lot of mosquitoes. And they implement some different water control to mitigate the mosquitoes, but then it upsets other elements of the ecosystem. A lot of nature drives where you can drive your car on these paths and stuff. A lot to do besides just the Space Center itself. Where did I put my... Did I put a support? Did I put my support? I think. What am I looking? No, not that. Yep. There. That's what I wanted. Nope. Except I'm on the wrong layer. So now we're going to add the bridge supports. Very much look like road support. In this case, that's because they are. The real ones, obviously, are. But it's interesting in that to me in that I've actually seen some modern bridge replacement projects, and modern railroad bridges, a number of them look kind of like highway bridges. Like there was this one on Iowa Interstate that I got to see where they replaced the bridge. That very much looked and felt like a the new one looks kind of like a road bridge. So we're just going to put a bunch of... They're a bit too wide, and I'm probably going to refine these out. But gives us something a little bit aesthetically different from just another wooden trestle. I wonder if I could find a road bridge that I could just put the track on top of. Is that a thing that I have? Yeah, not quite right, but it'll look better than what I've got. I think. I put it like a little bit lower to give a different kind of look of it. And we'll move. But then it creates big pillars. Not quite what I was looking for. Something narrower than that. Look pretty wide. Maybe I just need a ridge. Yep, still too wide. Maybe we'll just do that as a thing. And I'll refine it off stream. We'll put it going to about there. Oof. Is it actually putting cars on it by default? Weird. That's a bit more what I want it to look like. Not quite, but a bit more. Sometimes it could be really difficult to find what you're looking for. You're like, oh, I want a bridge that looks like that. And you see it in your mind's eye, and yet hard thing to actually find. Unless you're good at 3D modeling and you're like, oh, I'll spend 5 minutes and make a thing. And there are some things I've done that way. Not quite the right look. I don't want to spend too long on this part. We'll just use this for now because it looks close enough and it will do. Lower it a little bit. Except it keeps randomly populating it with trucks. Nah. Maybe I need a concrete bridge. That might help me out. There we go. That's what I wanted. Knew I had it in here. I knew it was in here someplace, some way, somehow. And I was right. This is actually pretty close to what they have. In fact, I think that it doesn't even necessarily use this. Maybe that's why I hadn't looked up the bridge timbers, is because it doesn't use bridge track like this. That's why. It just uses more of the concrete track. Okie dokie. Yep. Let's do that then. The thing. Except I've now changed the track type. Whatever, we'll leave that for what it is. So, but that concrete bridge looks exactly like what I want. That is what I wanted. I'm gonna put that in place. I'm gonna get the right height for it. Apply that height here and here, and then I'm gonna put my road supports in place. KR, those rail yards that don't make sense run on the power of imagination. You just have to believe hard enough. And is that a road, a rail, a road? Half-built Death Star. No Death Stars on this plan. There will be a space shuttle. That part is coming soon. Part is coming soon. I do look forward to showing you guys what the space shuttle looks like. I'm really, really proud of that. I have my reasons for being really proud of it. I'm very happy with how that turned out. Put that up to there. Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's not quite, if you looked at photos, you'd be like, Nick, it doesn't but is it good enough for me? The answer is yes. Sometimes good enough. But it is making me thankful that I did some of the things that I did do off streams. Definitely want to have time to play with it. This is one I've been excited about for, as I say, a couple of months. Reading Bernie's book got me back on the kick of the NASA Railroad, which is something that I've had a fascination with. I've wanted to, to be perfectly honest, I've wanted to talk about it on the podcast for years. I really want to, at some point, cover it on the show. The challenge that I've had there is finding somebody. It's ironic because the railroad shut down in 2011, so it's very recent history. NASA Railroad is very recent history. And yet, the general manager, well, it's just been hard to find people who used to work there that I could invite onto the podcast. The guy that I'd want to invite was their last general manager, but sadly he passed away less than a year after he retired, which is too bad, for what that is, on top of, let alone the fact that I would have loved to hear what he might have shared on the show. So I'm liking that bridge. That's the right look. It's the right vibe. I can dig it from that center. Now we are going to add water, and I was wondering if I placed that in the right place. I think I'm going to shrink the dig holes down. Do I want to do that now? I don't want to do it now, but I'm probably going to. So we're going to put all of our water into place, like so. And then we're going to lower it. And then we're going to readjust the dig hole, so forth, so that it looks nice and pretty. Got our water like so. We just lower it. Like that. And that looks pretty good. I delete that bit. And then I need to move my thing move the fascia, which is going to be on that layer. Over one. Just to get it to line up as I want it to line up accordingly. There and there. And then I just need to add a bunch of dig holes to the dig hole layer. Nope. Not what I wanted to do. Unlock. Do them. Dig holes. To go through and go. Boom. And that way, we have our nice clean edges with the water. That scene makes me happy. As far as the trees, I'm going to put another layer down. Technically, I should probably have a break in the trees so that that part is green. Let's see if I like how that looks. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Let me switch back to the main root layer and just see how that actually looks if I discontinue the trees from back here and here. Because it's true that if you're looking out on the water, you're not going to look up. Works for me. We'll take it. So we've got the quintessential scene, which is us looking up. I might move the wall back just to make the water a little bit wider for my own sake with the root, but not going to worry about that now. What I am going to worry about now is some PBR rocks to make the causeway look more like a causeway. A rebel with a causeway, if you will. Like so. Just that detail alone gives it a nice built up appearance. That all the way around there. Yeah. That makes me happy. And we're going to add them around here. Kind of mix them with the ones we've already got on that side. Over here. Like, there we are. That is good by me. I might refine it later with the angle and stuff, but I do want to get on with the rest of it. Looks sleek. Thank you, KR. And hello, Matthew Harris. Trainsman 54, Railroad is actually open now. There's no dedicated crew equipment anymore, but we still use it for Artemis. Oh, you say we. Are you, do you work for NASA? Are you a contractor? That's, if you could share that, that's cool. Yes, you are correct. So, I'm not clear on whether the railroad still exists as an entity or not. But yes, you're correct that the tracks are in service for Artemis and other things. Like, I've seen photos of some giant tanks being delivered for the Space Center. So, yes. I'm talking about it past because we're really modeling this in the shuttle era. But you are correct that it is still a thing. Okay, so back to the part of the show where we add the dry grass. Probably just through here. I need to remind myself if there's any roads or anything specific. Oh, trees and stuff. Yeah. I think... Yeah, I'm just going to put grass through here, and then I'll refine it based on where I want to put streets and such. Glad you think it looks sleek, KR. Matthew Harris, my voice keeps cutting in and out. Is that just my voice, or is it the whole stream? Let me know if that continues to be an issue. Not sure how much I can do about that. And Alchem Studios, you're my question about the warehouse. Space shuttle days, there were several sightings that served structures near the VIB, so I added one for some additional operational interest. Most of the tracks are gone now. Okay. So maybe we could simulate dropping a load at a warehouse, since there isn't a siding for it. I'll have to give that some thought. Oh, you work for a contractor. Cool, Trainsman. Oh, hi, August. Glad I sound fine to you. First-time channel visitor. Well, welcome. And glad that you like the look of it. We are in Trains with a Z19. That is the platform that we are building this in. But glad to have you on. One of the reasons I chose streaming the NASA Railroad, other than just that I love this, is that I was hoping some new folks might drop in and see what this is all about. So I'm gonna do the base, and then we'll do some refinement from there. We'll just do this as our kind of base color, and then we'll just do it up to here, because then I can just focus on this section, then we'll focus on the other side. And I think once we get this textured, then we'll roll out the rocket. Because I know you guys, some of you have probably been waiting to see the space shuttle. And I'm really happy with it. I'm really, really happy with it. I'll be honest, one of the reasons why I've wanted to do this but haven't is because there weren't any really good space shuttle models for Train Z, and it's one of those things where if it bothers you enough, you just go and do it yourself. Now, I didn't go do it from scratch, but I managed to find one online that I then imported and did a lot of messing around with to get it to work properly in this platform. So I'm gonna mark that as one of my textures. One more in there. See what else I've got in the way of PBR dry grass. I guess I can replace it for little bits of green. And there'll be a lot of paved sections. We'll worry about that. And maybe 27 for some brown. Probably some areas where we can put some tall grass as well to get a little bit of variety there. Lot of trees in here, which makes me wish I knew more about Florida vegetation, because I feel like my usual trees will just look a little out of place here. Need some palms, some other things, but that is our base coat for the scenery. Then we'll put our, we'll clear that up, and we're gonna add our ballast to suspect siding, which during the shuttle era was used for the construction of the landing runway for Space Center. Well, I should say not just landing, they did use it. So the runway for Kennedy Space Center, and then later they would, if they weren't ready for the SRBs at the RPSF here, they would park them there. So it's nice to have that, because it adds variety to what you could do with the SRB cars as well. Oh, glad you like the music, Millennial Modeler. I do like this track in particular. Agree with you on that. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of terrain sculpting because this just feels very big and I don't want it to seem too perfectly flat. So we'll just add a little bit of dimension to it. Just a little bit. So it's not all 100%. And then trees. Maybe some sauce notes would fit. Where are my sauce notes? Like if I put, some of them are quite tall, but I feel like that looks like, well, they're technically pines. I don't know if you'd see pines. Oh, would you see that pines? The times that I wish I knew things that I don't know. Because this is feeling a little black. I want it to feel a little bit more. Maybe mix it with just some clay. And probably a forest texture, just a little bit of. Because these palms, man, it's hard to make the palms look convincing as a forest. But probably too many of them and too samey is the issue I'm really running into. Do another, what I meant to copy. Another couple of these that I'll just put down like so. Like that. And then we'll use the PBR forest. And I might even do a little bit of tall grass just to give it a little bit of variety. I almost feel like I should put in a couple of those canals, because those canals are everywhere. But that might be a nice use for this space that doesn't really otherwise have a ton of use. Oh, what? Why am I worrying about what trees I should use? I have reference photos. Silly me. Okay. Well, I mean, it is a lot of palms, but it is a lot of bushy stuff too. So, okay. I might change this up. But just for the sake of having things in place, because it is very dense. That's one of the things about the trees on Merritt Island is they're very tightly compact, very tightly compact. So we're gonna just do that kind of thing like so, because they really should go. And then we do actually want a ton of palms. That is a thing we want, even though kind of similar to one another, but we'll try to vary them a bit. I don't want to have it go in even further because it's very, as we saw from, and I can just switch. This is my reference photo. Yay for having reference photos I can share with you guys. So you can see from this that we've got our palm trees on the right side, but it's very, we have some deciduous stuff too, but it's very tight on the right of way. So that's what we're trying to replicate along here. And we'll do a couple more palms like there. Because I think really just this whole area needs to be completely bushy, filled up kind of look to it. It needs to be very full and dense. Because we're not doing, I mean, admittedly we're doing some switching here, but this is also a train sim route. So we don't have to worry about reaching over the sides of the layout in the way that we would if we were building this in real life. But it does that pre-visualization that we're able to get through this does help us to see what we might do scenery-wise. And speaking of pre-visualization, now's a good time to point out that if you are watching this and you look at it and you go, well, he kind of seems to know what he's doing. I wonder what my layout would look like that I'm working on. If you're still in the design phase of a layout, I do take commissions. I'd be more than happy to work with you on bringing your vision to life on stream. If you need help with the actual design process as well, I'd be happy to explore that with you. Reach out to me at greattrainlayouts.com. The tracks are rusty because the rails are not used all the time. That's correct, August. Oh, hi, you silly. Modeling usage of HB3 plus 4 or 2 plus 4. I don't know what you mean by 2 plus 4. You could 2 and 4 for the initial plan for bringing the SRB segments in. You're gonna have to translate that to English. I'm not even sure I know what you mean by that. But the layout that we're going with is pre-2011 for context. Yes, Alchem, exactly. The trees help to break up, give a little bit more of a sense of distance. I'm inclined to even put some in this gap here, just to separate the siding out a bit. Because I think it just looks very empty otherwise. And admittedly, there are parts of the Space Center that are very empty, but balancing of things, that's the trick of it. It's a balancing of the space. Sometimes you want that really wide open quality, and other times you want things to feel like it's where's that sauce? I might actually I can't do that, but maybe some quist bushes. There we go. Yeah, that's what I need more of. Yep. Yeah, I needed some of that bright green. So yay for some variety with the quist bushes, which is technically a redundant statement. I dig that. And then we'll need to fill in that corner with a bunch too. How am I on time? Man, this is taking longer than... Like, I looked at this and I thought, oh, this will be easy because all the buildings, but just goes to show how much there is to be done. There's a lot that we could be doing as far as detailing with this. So, yes, I like having the trees there. I might have a couple of bushes in the foreground as well, just to kind of suggest, like, hint at the idea that there's bushes on both sides. Might even totally block it in, but we'll start with that for now. I don't want to be too... I want to be able to finish the rest of this is what I want to be able to do. And then we'll just do some quick and fill into the corner with more trees. This is going to be a fun one to super detail once it comes off stream. We'll add some more of these guys. Add a couple of these out here. Definitely need to make them shorter because they should not be too tall. Now, yeah, now this is looking and feeling right. Just we're getting that kind of claustrophobic trees right along the edge of the tracks feel. That to me is what we needed, and we're getting that now. That's the benefit of exploring in the sim, is just being able to try these different ideas out and see what makes the most sense. Okay, I'm gonna call that good for now. I can refine that later, but I want to get the rest of this done. You silly RPSF, i.e. tall building separate for... Yes, so this is the RPSF that we're using. It's not exactly the right model, but we're gonna have the right model once we actually build this for real. But I'm not sure what you meant by HB2+4. Would love to have that broken down. Oh, and Millennial Modeler, that track that you liked, It's on Epidemic Sound, which is what I use for the music you hear in the background. Maybe we're hearing it again. Maybe I put it in the playlist twice. Who knows? Okay, let us see. Yes, I guess I did play it in the playlist twice. So, we need an... So this is an access road like that. So we're just going to use another... Oh, I think maybe I came to the edge. No, maybe I didn't put it. Hold on a second, guys. Yep. Switch it back. Okay. 2. Oh, HB stands for high bays. Since shuttle ended, the tracks have been used twice. For Artemis 1 delivery in 2020 and Artemis 2 in 2023. Wasn't it... Maybe you would know this, Trainsman. I saw photos online of some giant tanks that weren't SRBs. Because I know at one point the railroad was... Right now they're using trackmobiles, but I know that they were sometimes using Florida East Coast Power and also leasing an Iowa Northern unit of all things. It's very... There's a lot... Like, the NASA Railroad is such a fascinating rabbit hole of existence, honestly. It's the kind of thing that you look at and you go, that's cool, and then the more you look at it, the more you realize there's all these kind of subtle details and things. It's very much a rabbit hole. Okay, so we've got this road here. Now, does that road cross over to get to the RPSF? I'm not. Now I'm going to go back to Google Maps to find out. Because yay for Google Maps having any of the answers on things. So, the answer to my question is yes, there are roads that cross, and then a lot of the area around the building is paved up. So, this is something that I'll probably refine off stream in terms of the roads, but we're just going to get them in there in a kind of base sense of like, here's a road coming in, and then we'll do textured for that, and then for actually I could probably just break it up there with a grade crossing type of thing. And then there's also road coming off the backside here, like so. Good enough. That'll work for now. So, now we need to... And then around it is... Yeah, there's some trees, some open grass. I think we'll put some trees in the corner here, just to give a little bit of variety. We'll leave that open. We'll leave that open, yeah. So, turn this off. And then, what about the middle of the crawler tracks? Kind of stony, grassy kind of stuff. Okay. So, actually what I should really do is just get all of that down for this whole area. And then we'll vary the textures a bit. So we can really see those crawler tracks stand out like so. We're going to mix in some other colors so it's not too uniform. Man, this ended up being involved. There's a lot to this. It just goes to show that it'd be very easy to think of this as a kind of a straightforward thing, and in ways it's yielded some fun surprises. That's what I love about doing these streams with you guys, is just what do we discover along the way, what that we just didn't know was a thing until we ended up doing it. This is gonna be. This is a fun one. I'm so glad that we get to do this. Okay, so now I'm gonna ballast in the track like so. And let me bring up the chat since you guys are at. Just a quick look. It looks like that was just as SpaceX was getting moved in at Pad A well before my time started. I added, and then Alcom, I added the small extension to the north side of the VAB to help hide the fact that the rails go through the VAB. Gotcha. And we might, I mean, honestly, it doesn't bother me. I mean, maybe for somebody who knows, it would, but the fact that we've got a door here anyway, it's like, okay, we can just say the tracks go through the VAB. That doesn't bother me too much. As we all know, model railroading is all about, well, not all about, but there are definitely compromises to be made. That's just kind of the nature of it. And you figure out the ones you're comfortable with, and you figure out the ones you're not. Use that to inform the process. So, man, this is now that it's starting to come together, and I was afraid of it being like just all about the structures, and it is in a way, but there's enough opportunity for subtle detail that we get to make it, especially the ways in which we're hiding, having these little mini forests in the corners that we can do stuff with. I think this is the type of stuff that's bringing it dimension. It's like these are the trees are sort of like the they're like the curtains of the stage. They help to frame things just a little bit in a way that doesn't steal the show or doesn't take over too much. I like that a lot. Hey Ron, excuse me. Hey Ron, glad you could join at least for a little bit. You're interested in this project. Your dad, at now age 94, was one of the earliest American rocket engineers. Oh, that's awesome. My oldest memory, I was watching a Saturn launch in 1962. Wow. That is so cool that you got to experience that. Yeah. I mean, there's such a fascinating history to the space side of things. I enjoyed going to the Space Center a lot. I knew I would enjoy it, and then I went and I really enjoyed it. It was very satisfying. I enjoyed it immensely. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing in the sense that they have this great history to present, and they know how to present it. I mean, just my favorite part, definitely seeing Atlantis. So nice. So, that was so beautiful. Because there's something I find really uplifting about the shuttle program and the idea of space exploration. It's very much something that it's one of those, gives me faith in humanity kind of things. Just you see all this science and all this engineering put to this technology that has further deepened our understanding of the universe with things like launching the Hubble Space Telescope and other space laboratories, the construction of the International Space Station. I mean, just so we do some really great things as humanity when we put our minds to it, and when we're feeling constructive. And to me, when I look at the space shuttle and the space program, there's an optimism that I feel. Speaking of things that make me happy. And I think there's something that's really timeless about that. Like watching Apollo 13, it very much taps into the optimism that existed with the space race in the 60s. And it's still it's taken on different forms, but it's still there. I think that there, and obviously we live in a very complicated world with a lot going on, but it's nice to have these things that we can feel good about when we can have that. I hope any of that makes sense. I love things that bring us together, and space feels like one of those things that has that ability to unite us. Um, Good to have that. Okay, that will do for now. Probably have to go back to that and work on that later. GRE, make it easy on the graphics side of things so one with a low to mid-tier gaming PC can run the root. Most of these layouts, I haven't heard of anybody having performance issues with the layouts, because the thing is that it's so small. Like, yes, I add detail, but it's not, these aren't giant I mean, you can see this is all exists on a single tile. You shouldn't have issue with it. Shouldn't. Okay. Last thing before we get to the part with the rocket is I'm just gonna check my reference for I want to do that. So that should be green, but then we'll pave the area around that. Yeah, that works for me. And then we'll do the exciting thing. I mean, hopefully this has all been exciting, but we're gonna do. I'm gonna reveal the rocket momentarily, because to me, the space shuttle. See the space shuttle on its stack. It is the. It's the thing. It is the thing. You look at it and you go, yeah, this is. Everything on this layout really centers around this view here, and the space shuttle is a very key of that. So we're gonna say it does that, and then I feel like I want to put a fence around there. I just feel like when life, yay for more fences. At least when it comes to model railroading, yay for the idea that we can put a fence there. Just to have a little bit more variety of things. Because we have so much of it is flat, and yay for having a little bit of detail. And I think I like the idea of having a little bit of trees on there. Oh, I should probably also add the ground texture for that too. So add our first ground here. Just so, and that's that, and then we'll add a similar corner to that here with a little bit of that in, like so, and then add some trees, and then I think it will be time to do the big reveal of the space shuttle. We'll just go down like so, because I don't want it to be super tall. Oh, I also don't want it to be spaceship. Just a little bit of green to just add a bit of a that kind of theater curtain. That down like so, move it away. Okay. Good enough for now. Probably gonna do things with that later. Oh, should add some bumpers. I think I'll be grateful for those. Haze yellow. There we go. Couple of bumpers here and here. Probably should add them to other places as well while I'm at it. I feel like I have the tool out already, might as well. Let's see, GRE, oh no, I already answered yours. Trainsman, just realized I'm going to have to model the gator fences for when I get to detailing my full-scale version. I don't think anyone's made the fences. Probably not. I mean, you know what you're talking about. If you say that we need fences, I believe you. And then we'll put some down here. think, I don't know if they're actually yellow, but I can swap that out later. Yellow feels right though. So much feels like this. It needs to be a little bit different than what I'm used to doing. If nothing else than for my own personal satisfaction. Okay, are you ready for the moment? So, let's talk about the shuttle stack and how it moves. First, of course, with the crawler. So, the NASA crawler, there's actually technically two. These were vehicles made for the Apollo program. They were built by the Marion Steam Shuttle Company in the early 60s. They are powered by Alco diesel engines. They are still powered by Alco 251s to this day. So that's a neat railroad connection with them. They have a top speed of 1 mile an hour. And they are massively powerful. And they are still in use today. I got to see them parked by the VAB when I visited. Sorry, my mustache is itchy today. So, this is, and I don't know why I thought this, but I sort of assumed that the shuttle just sat on the crawler, but that is not true. This shuttle actually sits on this. This is the MLP, the Mobile Launch Platform. This is what the shuttle actually sits on, and also the Saturn V rockets would sit on this too. There were 3. I think there's 2 that exist now. So basically this has legs that retract, so the crawler drops off the shuttle, the legs come down, and then the crawler goes away, and then the shuttle launches off of this. And last, but certainly not least, drumroll please. Well, while you're drum rolling, just to say, Millennial Modeler, job well done on this, Dick. Once again, I never gave the NASA Railroad a top before, but you've created a compelling story. The NASA Railroad is a story. Like, we'll talk about that idea of storytelling in a moment. But, your drum roll, here we are. We have Space Shuttle Atlantis. Oh, okay. So, I can't take a bow for making the model. Actually, all 3 of these models are made by other people. What I did do is I did make them work in Train Z. And in the case of Atlantis, I did a heck of a lot of work on retexturing the thing to texture it and the shuttle, the tank. I am so happy with how this turned out. It is, oh, I love how this turned out so much. Still needs some tweaks on it, but it makes, the shuttle, like, I can't even speak. I can't even. Maybe you guys will have some words in the comments, but this is what it's all about. This whole railroad is here to support this vehicle going into space. I mean, and other reasons, but like, this is the heart of it for this era that we're modeling. This is Atlantis. Let me briefly switch into. I'm gonna switch into play mode so that we can see it a little bit better. So, here we have it on the stack with the solid rocket boosters. Oh, I love this thing so much. So I did not make the model again. I used a publicly available file that was open to modification, and there's just something so majestic about seeing it on the stack. I love it. I love it so much. So we have it positioned on the road as if it were going to be transported to the... Oh, I'm realizing I have to put in all the grade crossing covers. I'll deal with that eventually. But it is on about to be transported to the launch site. Interesting to note, if from a creative standpoint, artistic standpoint, I'd have it facing the other way, but this is the prototypically accurate way because it would be just going one direction. It would have to do the world's longest, most complicated 3-point turn if it came out the other way. because I like seeing the shuttle on the other side, but this is the accurate way to see it. But I think it's still visually impressive. Um, I'm glad you like it, Bernie. So just to take a moment to appreciate things. I'm gonna switch back into my mode so I can use my other camera. Like this is the money scene right here. Like this is why you build this, is for this scene, because that just is so beautiful, and it's really hard to convey the scale. Again, 3 feet high in N scale. Okay. I'll try to get over I'll try to get over my own excitement so we can finish this thing up, because we're clearly not going to have enough time for me to do the super detailing with the cars and stuff over here, but let's just get the ground coverage done so we can play with the thing, because we want to play with the thing. That we most certainly want to do. So we're going to finish covering up the ground here. Fortunately, there's not a lot to it. Like, this is kind of a yard area and so forth. We don't need to do on here. We're just going to do another round of kind of the basic coverage and so forth, just to have it look presentable. So what do you guys think? Does this have that grand scale? I love it so much. This is one where it's like, I've been so excited about building this. I'm so glad I get to do it with you tonight. It's something. It's just something really different. I mean, it's got the heart, and what I've loved about exploring this, is that there is such. I mean, you want to talk about something with a story, so. Okay, let's talk about the concept of story while I'm doing ground texture things. Perfect timing. So I read this article recently in Model Railroad Planning 2025 by Mike Hauk, who designed the Susquehanna New York layout, which I've built as a train sim thing, which you can download from greattrainlayouts.com. I also covered it on an episode of What Makes This Layout Great. Anyway, he was talking about the concept of this article is about drawing comparisons between model railroading and wargaming and role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. Really interesting article through and through, very well written. But one of the things that he said, I'm surprised I didn't really think of it this overtly before, because I am a storyteller, but he makes the point that model railroading is about storytelling. That's what it's. Model railroading is about telling a story. That how you construct the layout, the scenes, how people travel through them, it is a story, and I couldn't agree with that more. So many of us choose subjects based on what we're nostalgic about. There's a narrative to every, or can be, I should say, a narrative to every layout, big or small. It's all about how you envision it. Because you could have a tiny little micro layout, but if you've got a story that's talking about that covers a history, and maybe it's just one piece of a very large railroad, but you're modeling this very tiny piece. That is a story. And there's no question that there is so much history and story to the space program and the space race and the shuttle program and the 21st century of space exploration. I mean, that's a given. I don't feel like I'm saying anything revolutionary by that. And the NASA railroad is this one piece of it that's very overlooked. I think those who are space fans know about it, but I think unless you delved into the topic, you really don't know it's a thing, because you wouldn't see it. I mean, you'd really have to know it was there, even during the shuttle program. not imagining it was a running every day kind of a thing, necessarily. So yeah, it's this really nifty, and that's why I'd love to cover it on the podcast if I could, um, because it's this fascinating piece of history, and this layout is an opportunity to tell that story, and and allude to the larger stories of the Apollo programs and the space shuttle and the the successes of putting a man on the moon and the tragic failures of Apollo 1, and the two space shuttle disasters. There's so much there's so much to that, that I find really moving. Um, and it's just great. I'm so glad to have come across Birdie's book and to be having an excuse to model it, here on the live stream with you guys, because I think that it's just for this history. And I'd like to think that these live streams that I do, aside from hopefully giving you ideas and giving you fun layouts to download after the fact that you get to play with, that it's a great opportunity to explore these stories of what was this prototype, or what was this inspired by, and what are we trying to convey here. Um, and what we're trying to convey here is just that there's so much supportive tech to the space program. Like this is the star. Yes, the space. Well, it was the star. With the space shuttle was the star, and then Artemis will be the new star. But there's so many, and the astronauts are the stars. But there's so many other layers of logistics and work and experimentation and contracting that go into what makes this thing fly. And this is a great way to explore that. This layout is a great way to kind of explore that, because it is a piece of that, and I love that about it. I want to align the roads a little bit, just because right now they're looking a little. There we go. I want to blend them in a little bit. Right now they look a little bit too plastered on. And I'll probably refine this later, but that'll do. It just a little something so the roads don't look like, hey, I just plastered this on at the last minute. So makes them look a little bit more part of things. We are cutting into playtime, so we do want to get to playtime very shortly, but I think we're close to that. I think we are very close to that. This has been. Oh, and of course I need my TRC. Right. Yeah, we could do that. That. And let's get some TRC. And maybe I'll even make them activate it, because I don't think that'll take too long. Mind you, these don't feel like they should have crossings. They feel like, should they? Shouldn't they? Okay. Does NASA have... Let me look at the crossings on the NASA. No, they're just signs. I'm on Google Earth, they're just signs. Okay, that makes life easy. So I will have a proper working grade crossing here, and then I will do non-grade crossing things elsewhere. Let me see. Or just signs for the other place. Okay, we've got... Yes, we've got one here, and we've got one here. Place that, and then I just need my TRC trigger. It's gonna be that. And one and one. And that's gonna be 1, 2. That's gonna be 1 and 3. Then I just need crossbuck. Yeah, their crossbucks are like everything else there, kind of funky, but I'm just gonna use a plain old crossbuck. Because I can only do so much before we get to playing. I need the crossbuck, maybe. Yeah, not quite right, but I do want to get to the part of the show where we play with this thing. I haven't even put the crossing covers in. So many details, little time, but we will at least get the big thing. Okay, there, because I could just place these in, and then later I can batch replace them. But a lot of experimentation. Nope. Switch to the UK. There and there. Oh. Yeah, this is making me very happy. It's this is a fun build. Oh, and I know what else I should. Well, maybe I'll get to that as well because I want to finish this. So we'll put our rubber crossing in. In real life, the tracks do not cross the crawler way, but I don't mind because I actually like it. I mean, can you imagine? The crawler is moving along at 1 mile an hour, and then it has to stop at a grade crossing for the railroad. Not what happens in real life, of course. But, what rubber do I want? Concrete. Probably actually want concrete. But, you know what? We're gonna stick with rubber right now. No, they are concrete. Let's just replace them all while we're at it. Okay, well, I guess what I'll say, what I was gonna say, while I'm placing all these crossing covers on. Let me see what you guys have to say. You're proud of me? Oh, thank you, KR. That's very nice. Millennial Modeler. Type of layout that could be really used as a crossover promotional tool for bringing space fans into the hobby more. Tons of space fans that also kind of dig trains. They just need a little push. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the kind of thing where I don't know if I could ever bring myself to model something so specialty. In the sense of I don't know if I could ever model something that was so specifically what it is. In the sense of I think I've covered this before on live streams where I have a lot of different interests and I love doing these live streams in part because that I can be indecisive and be like, well, I like this, and we're going to try this month, and I like that, so I'm going to try that. That's part of the fun that I have with doing these live streams. And with the some of these layouts, like especially if it's a main line through a forest, many places you could pretend like, oh, it's this main line and now it's that main line. But something like this, I'm not going to run my Rapido train steam locomotives on this. Like, what am I doing at that point? I'm not going to run my Rapido steam locomotives. As an example of how, like, this, you really need to run what is meant for this, for it to make sense. I mean, yes, technically you could run your layout the way you want. You could have the NASA Railroad using steam locomotives. You do you, boo. I mean, absolutely. But for me, like, this is so obviously the NASA Railroad that if I were to build it, like, I'm gonna run NASA, right? But that's the challenge of it. Is part of me is like, this is so awesome, and I'd love to have this. And yes, you can take a drink every time I say that on a live stream. But this is one where it's like, oh, it would be so massively tempting. But it is the matter of, would I be happy with it for the long run? Like, it is cool, but it is very specific to what it is. Like, it is very much the thing it is. I will say what I do like about it, though, from my standpoint, as being somebody who doesn't have a lot of model railroaders nearby, is that it's at least a way that you can make use of the space and you're running one train at a time in a way that's satisfying. Like, you don't need a dispatcher, you don't need multiple trains. Like, this is a one-person layout satisfying. I mean, I guess maybe you could run 2 switchers at a time, but I don't know if the NASA Railroad ever ran more than one train at a time. Anyway. Okay, well, I am going to say, given that we're already 15 past the hour, we want to get to the play part. I'm going to say we're done. Obviously, I want to do more detailing around here in the long run, and there's a lot of other places to add grass and things like that. But for now, we are going to call this completamente, because I want to get to the part of playing. And let's take a moment to just kind of digest this. Let's look around. Partially because then I can make sure. Oh, which stands right? What do I want to do with which stands? These and other mysteries of the universe. Questions, I guess I should. For now, I think I'll just leave them. I want to get to the part where we play, and the red levers aren't acting. Obviously, to be replaced at a later point. Actually, maybe I have something that I can use, like the ground throw style. I'll just throw those on. But I'll just make sure that they're at least not in weird areas doing odd things. Good enough. Now let me see about I'm going to take this. I'm going to replace switch lever with. Do I have my NS ones? And a switch lever manual. Do I like that? Do I want that? Probably. Or maybe that. There we go. Okay, I'm going to replace it with that, and then I'll finesse it later. Only so much I can do at any given time. And of course, it put them on completely opposite side of what I wanted, so maybe I need to do 3. Nope, still reverse them. Okay. How about this one? Keeps wanting to reverse them, so not. Nope. That. I knew how many ground throws I had. Maybe this will work. Nope, that's a. There we go. That's what I want. Close enough. I can worry about how this fits in later. But for now, I've got something that looks realistic. Okay. Bernie, they had a neat crane operation near the engine house to lift the covers off the booster cars. Was that near the end? Was that the storage area with the crane? I thought they lifted the covers off in the RBSF or RPSF. Anyway, so taking stock of what we've got, accepting that we've done everything we need to for now, I think this is pretty darn too. Well, I mean, dark. I will do that one thing of just darkening. There we go. Yeah, okay. But with that said and done, this is pretty darn good. Obviously, some refinements that I'm going to do off stream and clean up. But does this look and feel like it should? Absolutely. Let me replace that grid so that when we see that, not terribly distracting. Place of grid. Nope, not a wall. grid with black. Texture like that. Goes here. There we go. Now when we see it, it's not going to be distracting. But yeah, that makes me very happy. I mean, it's what I wanted it to be. That is what I wanted it. More detail to come, but that's the NASA era. I mean, the highlights of it that we need. So now let's have some fun. I mean, we've been having fun. At least I hope you've been having fun. If you're watching this, that suggests you're having fun too. Oh, hi, Sleepy K4, Ethan Park. What year's the layout set? Shuttle program. So we're gonna say. I mean, nebulous. I'm gonna say late 80s, but there's nothing really specific right now. It can be made specific when we place cars. Part of it is also I want to transport helium, but I might be taking liberties anyway. We'll get into that when I'm staging this. And then Bernie, I believe it was for the return journey. I should have said put the covers on. Maybe. I mean, that's the thing. There's so much. I wish there was more knowledge out there about how the NASA Railroad operated during the shuttle program. And I'm sure there's people who know. And if you know, please reach out to me. I'd love more answers on or off the record of just how this railroad ran. But we're gonna take a stab at it tonight. We're gonna stage ourselves. We are gonna stage a train. We are gonna bring in some solid rocket boosters. So, in fact, I created a consist just for the occasion. So this is just 4 cars, and I'm probably going to bring in a full... I'm having to remember. Was it 4 cars per SRB or 8 cars per SRB? I think it was 8 cars per SRB. I'm struggling to remember that detail. Correct me in the comments. How many cars per solid? I think it was 4. You know, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, those are long. But that... Right. Each of these is a section. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. 4 sounds right. Ooh, trains. Man, I might have a document that I got from Public Affairs that has something on ops. It has the entire roster. Also, there's updated cars on Texas skate shops. We're going to bring in a full shuttle's worth of SRBs. That's what we're going to be doing here. We're also going to be... Yeah, I'll get to that. So we've got our cars that were been dropped off. We're going to put all of our SRB loads on. Copy that across. Oh, so nice. So pretty. So we're going to be bringing in SRBs as a move. I do want to have cars that we're bringing to interchange. Because we're going to start at the engine house. We're going to switch cars out, bring them to the interchange, and we're going to end with the magnum opus. No. We're going to end with the grand finale of bringing the SRBs into the scene and starting to switch them. Experimenting with that. So, I need some tank cars that I'm going to pick up from here. Like these cars. And we'll put some on the other track that maybe those aren't getting touched. So, just so that we have an excuse, because we gotta have an excuse to come and pick up cars here. I mean, of course. Now we'll leave that. I'm less clear on what this area is used for. I know it's used for storing cars, including the flat cars that are spacers. I'm less clear on the specifics involving this. What else? Oh, I wanted to do helium cars, right. So this is where I may be making things up. But The Air Force Base that's adjacent to NASA, or adjacent to Kennedy Space Center. I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's where they have Titan rocket launches. They, for a number of years, had helium cars. And what I gather is that the helium was brought in by truck, but then the trains were used to switch the cars around. We are going to do some helium car. So this track over here is meant to represent the interchange with the Air Force Base, which had its own switcher and so forth. But I want to have an excuse to run helium cars. We're going to have these helium cars going back to the interchange, and we're going to pick up the SRBs. So we're going to pick up the helium cars, and but this is the modified Boeing 747 that had the mounts for carrying the space shuttles, and this version happens to arrive. It's cool. It's fun. It's not what we're using though. We are instead using NASA 3, which is the NASA Railroad had 3 SW-1500s that they purchased from the Toledo, Peoria, and Western when the shuttle program. So their original power was Alco S2s. In fact, do I have? No, I don't have those installed. But they had a couple of ex-Army S2s, at least one of which survives in a museum. But then the shuttle program comes, and so they buy these units. Most of them are painted like this one here. And number 1 and number 2 always remained in that scheme, but number 3 at some point got this nice flashy scheme. This one was sold to the Madison Railroad after the shuttle program ended, and it still has this paint scheme. So, the more you know. Let's get to switching. Sorry, I just probably blew your eardrums out. Give me a second and I will turn the sounds down for Trainsy, both for you and for me. How's that? Hopefully I didn't blow your eardrums out again. Let me know if you can't hear me over the sound of the locomotive. But, here we go. Oh, which way should it be facing? Yes? I want it facing the other way. Yeah. So, here we go. Time to do some switching. NASA Railroad style. So, we are going to first collect the cars for interchange and take them over to JJ Yard. So an interesting story about number 3 is that at in the, I think this was the mid to late 2000s, they needed to swap out the trucks on the locomotive, and they weren't using, I think it was the number 2 at the time. But what they ended up doing is they pulled this locomotive into that building over there, into the RPSF, where they usually use the crane to lift off the solid rocket booster sections. And instead, they lifted the locomotive off of its trucks. And there's video of this on YouTube that NASA produced. It's pretty cool. So I'm thinking, just for context of this unfinished scene here, gonna have a road coming in here, so we have another crossing. Probably have a road paralleling here and add some more trees, just to fill this in a little bit more, because it feels really empty right now. Then parking lot and cars around here. Oh, but yeah, just for context. See, look at how diminutive that switcher looks when compared with the vehicle assembly build. I mean, that is just insane how much of a size difference that is. to me. Like that, you really can't wrap your and I. So obviously, security is a big thing. So I couldn't. They don't let you go right up to the building. Needless to say, you can see it from the bus, and that's about the extent of it. I imagine the only way to really properly understand how big it feels is just to stand on the ground and stare up at the thing. So our switcher is currently traveling through the VAB, which, uh, yeah. So thank you, Howie, for sending me this, this and the LCC to use for tonight's stream and for the layout project proper. These are gorgeous models that you've made. A lot better. I had a one I was going to use for this, but yours is much nicer than mine. And oh, there we go. There we are. But yeah, an N scale, like, I mean, you know what an N scale switcher would be about this big, right? So think about that in comparison to that. Oh, I know what I could. So let me. Oh, yep, that's which the right way. So I'm gonna pick up those tank cars. We'll go and grab those. While I'm grabbing the tank cars, oop, track's a little crooked. Yeah, we fixed that. Okay, so while I'm picking up the tank cars, what is one of the things that I have envisioned? If you haven't noticed, I've envisioned many ideas for train layouts, but one that I've actually. Oh, thank you for joining us, Sleepy K4. Glad that you enjoyed the stream. I will do the horn for going by here. So, a year ago, yeah, about a year ago, I watched the film Moonraker with my wife. I'm going to turn off those vehicles in a moment. Definitely. Okay, so I was watching the film Moonraker with my wife. I'm a huge James Bond fan as well. So space, James Bond, trains, yeah, I am a person who loves many things. And after watching the film, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to make an N scale 4x8 that was a um, a villain's lair for Drax Enterprises, which is the bad guy's company in the film, um, where he has a NASA railroad equivalent. So cars are brought in, and you could switch the cars around, and you see the Moonraker shuttles. That is one idea that I've had. Who knows if I would ever do anything with it? Actually, no, it wasn't a 4x8. I envisioned it as a 2x4. And I was considering it for a live stream, but custom objects I didn't have, and the shuttle. The lack of a shuttle was the big reason why I didn't do an NASA railroad for a long time. Plus, lacking a track plan. I like having other people's track plans to build. I could have come up with one, but Bernie did a great job on this plan. It really captures the spirit of the NASA railroad. Okay, here we are picking up our tank cars. I suppose if I wanted to make things complicated, I could be like, oh, okay, this car needs to remain, but these cars are good to pick up. But I don't feel like doing anything terribly complicated. We're just going to pick up our tank cars. We're going to pick up the helium cars. We're going to go to the interchange. Trains man, thanks for the compliments on the models. Really happy with how the VAB turned out. We're just hoping I can find some decent reference for the inside of the RPSF. Yeah. I hope you. Well, I will say, as far as the inside of the RPSF, that video on YouTube with that covers them replacing the trucks on this engine probably has some good shots. I imagine there's got to be photos that you could, like, if you're focusing on searching the photos of the process of rotating the solid rocket booster section, probably your best bet. Anyway, back to the Drax Enterprises railroad. I had the idea because the Drax Enterprises, like, there's this logo in the movie. The bad guys company has a logo. There's a paint scheme with a lot of yellows. The Moonraker shuttles have these cool colors and so forth. So I have this idea that someday, as a 2x4 N scale build, because then I don't mind the fact that it's very specific function. At that point, I don't mind that I'm building something that has to very specifically be used in one way. Is a 2x4, but that's not a huge layout. That's easy to store. So I like that as a concept of a thing that I would do. Let's get a nice photo here. Oh, that that makes me happy. Um, but yeah, so that's one of the things that I've realized that there's certain concepts that I have that perhaps the way to do them because they're so specific to what they are would be as a mini N scale layout. Um, so maybe someday I'll build that as a thing. I could see doing that. Time will tell. Of course, the other way that your operations get elongated on this layout is just the fact that this is an industrial switching route where maybe Trainsman knows what the maximum speed of the NASA railroad is, but I feel as the irony is that the tracks themselves are built to like the NASA railroad's main line is built to handle trains up to 60 miles an hour. And yet, it will never see trains traveling at 60 miles an hour. Oh, let's get a nice view on this. Oh, that's what it's all about. This right here with the shuttle. It's going to get even better once we bring in the SRB cars. That's going to be the cream shot. That's going to be the perfect. That's going to be the cream of the crop of the shots. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm just too excited about this. So, it's going to be interesting to see how the switching goes for this as well. Um, with switching the cars in and out of the ESF. Let me make sure I've got that right. I do. So next up, we're picking up these helium cars. So let's talk, while we're going to pick those up, let's talk like what all you could model in terms of the types of commodities you could be hauling. Um, I'm going pretty easy on myself, but there's a lot of variation you could do. So, number one thing to be hauling, of course, is these solid rocket boosters. Like that is the heart of what. That said, about to find out if I got the crossing set up right. Um, hmm. Maybe I set something up wrong. Could have sworn. Well, I'll fix those later. Anyway, so the SRB is obviously the heart of it. That said, there's a lot of sort of fuel type things that you can haul, chemical things. It's there's a lot of different fuels and substances involved with the shuttle launches. And obviously, some of those were hauled by truck. But if in your world you want to haul them by train, your railroad. Um, you can haul all sorts of things to interchange with the Air Force Base that's connected to Kennedy Space Center. Um, so, like, I've got these helium cars, but you could model building supplies or box cars with who knows what in them. Hey, Mr. Railyard, glad you could join us. Um, so here we are picking up our liquid helium. Well, these cars are empty. Um, but our liquid helium cars. There we go. And now we're going to the interchange. I'm just going to do a quick check of that crossing because I could have sworn I did that naming right. One. Oh, wait, hold up. Yeah, one and two. And three. Strange. Hmm. Weird. Oh, hold on. Let's set it. That's probably why, because I didn't set my trigger radius. Let us try that. Maybe now it'll actually work. So there's all sorts of things you could haul to the interchange here. Uh, there's a variety of things you can haul here. You could haul ballast or aggregates, maybe used in repairing some of the roads. You could model the time period when construction material was being brought in to build the runway. A lot of different there you wouldn't think that there's a wide variety of commodities, and yet there are. Partially because some are documented, some it's just a matter of if there's nobody to tell you you're doing it wrong, then you're doing it the way you want to do it. Mr. Railyard, did I make some of these buildings? I made the. Well, no. Okay, so I modified and imported these models from ones available online. These two, the VAB and the LCC here, were made by Howie, who's graciously allowed me to use them for the project. I appreciate that. Here we are going across JJ Bridge, which we can see has lowered. The real one has a control shack off to one of the sides. I might add that once I'm get around to super detailing this. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is cool. I am so happy with how this turned out. This is a fun one. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying this. I always if not, let me know. I always appreciate your feedback on these things. I like knowing what interests you, and I like experimenting. This show, Great Train Layouts Live, is all about experimenting with these track plans, seeing something that captivates us, and going, what does that actually look like? Um, I would love to see this train layout exist in real life. I don't think I am the person to bring it to life, but to bring it to life in the real world. But it is cool. It is very cool. Okay, let us not run into the SRB cars. We'll bring our train onto this track here. And we're going to run around our cars. We'll pick these up. Tucker is having a good time relaxing on my lap at the moment. Did I see the pilot of the FBL? No, I did not. Didn't even realize that the you mean the full Buccaneers? Did that come back or something? Not aware of it. Anyway, let's take in this view as we have the train going past the cars. love to do something like it in HO, especially since I've 3D printed a full Artemis SRB train. I'd love to see how that turns out. And okay, while we're doing this run around and stuff, let's talk about compression. If you don't have this kind of space, what would be the kind of the key things to keep? How could you compress it? Well, for one, you don't necessarily need all this space in front of the VAB. You also don't need the VAB to take up this much lateral room. VAB could be pushed into the back a little bit further. Those are some thoughts there. To me, I think the essential ingredients, the things that make it, number one is, well, obviously, the VAB. I mean, this just is such a presence. It is such a presence. It would be hard to imagine doing the NASA Railroad without having the VAB, even if it was just painted on a backdrop somewhere. But I feel like this is kind of part of the core. You definitely want the RPSF so you have somewhere to take your SRBs. And I'd say the bridge, just because it's distinct. It's something beyond just the trees and so forth. But I think that you could take those elements and make something that is smaller than this. Because you don't necessarily need to do the whole JJ yard. You could just have a cassette staging of some kind. A lot of ways you could do that. And I think, I think that's kind of interesting when you look at the idea of just the SRB train. Talk about that. These that don't even actually have to be modeling the NASA Railroad to model the SRB train. So the SRBs were transported over a multitude of railroads: Union Pacific, Florida East Coast, Norfolk Southern, as the primary ones, and I think CSX, yes. So what's interesting about the cars is that the amount of cars, each railroad owned an amount of cars that was proportional to how much of the route was the SRBs, was how much of the total route was used to transport the SRBs. So, made up numbers. If 80% was on Union Pacific, no, too much. 60% was Union Pacific, 30% was NS, and 10% was Florida East Coast. Then Union Pacific had six cars, Norfolk Southern had 3, and Florida East Coast had 1. Those aren't the actual numbers, but the document, I've seen the actual numbers. If you Google search that, you will find the actual amounts of flat cars that the railroads own. So in this case, these are all Union Pacific cars, but Florida East Coast, Norfolk Southern, and CSX also had them. Let's see. Bernie. Oh. Look at me going slamming right into those, multi-million-dollar solid rocket boosters. Sure, why not? Let's see. So Bernie says, I am currently working on a model of the mobile launch pad at LC-41 on the Air Force side of Cape Canaveral. That model is HO with a Titan V rocket, New Horizons mission. Cool. Look forward to seeing that one. I think that I liked your plan from your 45 track plans book that involved having HO scale with a rocket that you could actually really, like a real rocket that you could launch outside. Thank you for the numbers, Trainsman. Yeah. Maybe I could have sworn. Or no, you're right. Norfolk Southern didn't own any, but I knew it was 4 railroads. You're right with Kansas City Southern. I trust your numbers more than my own. Okay, so we've got our spacer flats. We've got our solid rocket boosters. We are good to go. And so do that. Being very gentle with these cars. So we have a full shuttle's worth of solid rocket boosters in here. And so, I think I read somewhere they travel at like 5 miles an hour with these things. They are gentle, which makes sense. I don't know that I'd want to be the engineer that caused damage to the SRBs in transit. I would not want to be that guy. So, we are very carefully going to take them across the bridge. What I'm going to do, for the sake of play, is I'm going to drop off 4 of them in here. Drop off 4 of them at suspect siding to just simulate that those aren't ready, and then bring the remaining 4 to the RPSF. And that's probably where I'll end the stream, honestly. The thing is, there's a lot of switching to be done, and it is very slow speed. I mean, because technically, we'd have to, at some point, we have to remove the spacer flats and probably put those into storage. Then we have to actually get every single car into that building so that it can be unloaded. I mean, there's a lot to this. It's not just like, oh, you bring them all to one track and then they magically get unloaded. It's like, no, you have to unload every single car. Oh, yeah, good story. Trainsman, I imagine how Norfolk Southern felt in Alabama and Mississippi when the bridge collapsed under them on one trip. Yes, so, well, let's get the money you here while I'm telling that story. And this is what it's about. Like, this is the view. Well, one of the views. As we watch the, yeah. Oh, that makes me happy. This is like, And then we'll turn around so that we can view the rocket. Oh, the rocket's being blocked by the building, of course. Okay, anyway, so, my story. While we're moving the SRB sequence, is that in 2007, I want to say it was, during one of these moves, a bridge collapsed underneath the SRBs and the train derailed. Miraculously, the SRBs were okay. I learned that somebody who was in the passenger car accompanying the move eventually passed away from their injuries sustained during the incident. And that incident was the last time that a passenger car accompanied the SRBs, after which now it's now they're just they follow the train by a road. So I'm led to believe. Fascinating stuff. I mean, so much history, so many stories in this. So here we are moving our SRBs. We're gonna. Do I want to put the front 4 or the rear 4 on the train? Or in the siding. Will I be able to fit all 4? I might have to take a couple spacers with me just because I don't have room. This is the kind of like, this is how you maximize the operations. Like, this is very much about careful movement of cars and structure. Yeah, I'm not going to have room for all of those on the track as is. So I'm going to need to do some splitting up. So we're going to say that it's these 4, but I am going to have to take out some of the spacer cars because we're not going to have room for them as is. Which is okay. The spacer cars are not a requirement for pulling on the NASA railroad. They're more for when the cars are being transported cross country. So, got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just want to make sure I clear the crossing, and then I should be that should give me enough room that then I can start to. I don't know if I need to take out all the spacers, but I'll take out as many as I need to in order to fit the cars in. Put the remaining spacers on one of these tracks, and then we can begin the unloading process. And that'll be our stream. So what do you guys think of this design? What does it what have we learned from it? What have you learned from it? Have you been inspired by it? To the point about ease of modeling. So some of this stuff, it's like, yeah, you would have to be comfortable scratch building with certain things. But as Bernie pointed out earlier, when it comes to the actual space shuttle, there are models that exist in 1/200th scale that, okay, that's going to be a little undersized, but really, if you don't have it right next to the train, you're not going to notice that. And those are as easy as model car kits. So simply to say, oop, I moved too much of the train forward. Okay, we're gonna, nope, wrong way. We're gonna rewind that a little bit. So it's the kind of thing where if you just wanted to have a, I don't quite have the room I need. Interesting. So I'm going to have to temporarily block the crossing just to get this initial car in. Actually, probably more than just temporary. This is where you kind of draft your operating rules and you say, well, how long are you allowed to block the crossing? And because maybe what you do is you just bring, because these are the cars going into the staging. So I'd bring these cars in, bring those cars in, take those cars back to suspect siding, and then bring those cars in. Yeah. But you know what? To make it easy, I'm probably just going to say we're working with the rear cars because that'll make our life a little bit easier. So we're just going to be putting these 4 rear cars on suspect siding, and we'll remove as many spacers as we need to make them all fit. August looks really cool to me. Glad you like it. Double Two YouTube fan could always 3D print an HO scale shuttle. Yeah, you probably could. I mean, the key is just finding a model and getting it to print right. It's a bit more of an involved thing, but yes, you could 3D print that. Mr. Railyard, what layout will be out this month? On Great Train Layouts Live, I have 2 new layouts. And I forget what they are. One I think is by Fonda, Johnstown, and Gloversville layout, and the other one I think is the Overland route, which is also, yes. So one is the FJ&G, and the other one is the Overland route, which was also made by the same guy who made this layout, Bernard Kempinski, who's also joining us in the chat as Alcom Studios. So yes, those are 2 layouts you can download now on the website. But if you want early access to couple of layouts that are not yet available there. I'm forgetting which ones are in early access, but my early access layouts are on Patreon. Oh, I know. One of them is the goes to patreon.com/theroundus. Okay, so if you become a member of Patreon, you get early access to the East Harbor Belt, which was that Pensy switching layout that we made as part of the Build It with Broadway series. And the just looking at it, come on. Oh, the DLNW Hallmark line, the Christmas, the winter commuter route with the electrics. those are both available early access. There we are. One thing about Train Z is that it doesn't always like tight curves with these. So this train is getting kind of bound up in the curves. But there's ways around that. Trainsman, you just sent me an email with the doc you mentioned. Oh, I appreciate that. That will be fun reading for me. I look forward to that. Oh, and let's just take a moment to this view as well. Like, this is what it's all about. This is the money shot. SRB cars, NASA railroad, space shuttle, Atlantis, VAB, goodness. Millennial Modeler, what is my favorite planet? The one I live on. I actually no, that's not. I mean, I do like Earth, but I really loved Saturn as a kid. I loved Saturn. I thought Saturn was cool with the rings. Oh, jeez. Really does not like the curves. That's kind of a bummer. Moral of the story is that this layout needs special operating instructions so that you're not getting bound on curves. Good to know. Well, in that case, what I'm going to do is I am going to, because I'm not blocking any crossings, so I'm just going to uncouple here. And I could just stick these cars over here to do the VAB stuff. I could put those on suspect siding. Maybe that'll be the end of the stream. We'll see. We'll see how long that takes. I have to admit, I didn't think that they would get bound on these curves, because these aren't super tight curves, but Train Z and diesels and model railroads don't always mix for that reason. One of the many reasons I'm a Steam guy. Mr. Rail Yard, I would love to play on this layout. This is an idea that I do not see rail fans. Well, give it a few months, because I'm going to need to do a lot more work to get it up to my standards. I want to do more, I want to add some more grass here, and some fences, and I definitely have more work to do on this other side. But, stay tuned. It will see the light of day. Again, give it a few months. That is a satisfying scene, though. I'm looking at this, I'm like, even, like, yeah, that is satisfying. There's just something really cool about it. And it's good in a way that it's this industrial switching layout where you would go at slow speeds anyway, because I think that helps to make the most of what it is. Okay. Now our cars have unbound, and now we're actually getting to... August, why are there empty spacer rail cars? Good question. Simply put, protection for the SRBs. There's probably a more detailed reason than that, as far as why you would have spacer cars, but just as a protective... Oh, thank you, Trainsman. Weight distribution. The SRBs are extremely heavy because they're delivered fully loaded. Thank you for the technical answer. Yes. That's also the reason, I should say, why they have 4 trucks under them, as opposed to just 2. So yes, SRBs, heavy. And it's true that they're fully loaded. What's interesting about the SRBs is that when they are ignited, there is no way to shut them off. So even if something went wrong during a launch, they can't be powered off. They have to go through their full burn. And WTube fan, this has got to be one of the most unique scenes in a sim I have ever seen. I'm glad I'm glad for that. I think this is a really creative layout design that Bernie Kempinski put together. Again, highly recommend his book Railroads Go to War. This plan is in there, covers a lot of other different elements of military railroads going back to the Civil War. I should also mention that Bernie Kempinski is the same guy who's made the Aquia line. If you follow model railroader, railroad model craftsman, you've probably seen photos of the Aquia line. It's an O gauge Civil War train layout that he has built in his house. It is one of the most. I really want to see it one of these days. It's one of the most gorgeous layouts I've seen. He has Lincoln pin couplers in O scale 2 rail. It's nuts. It looks gorgeous. So this guy, so he's literally written the book on military railroads, on modeling them, and he is also, but that book also includes the NASA railroad. So, yay for covering a unique subject, because he talks about, I feel like a lot of times when we talk about kind of the military and railroads, it's largely about World War II, which obviously there's a lot that you can cover there, and it's interesting in its own right. But he talks about the trench railroads of World War One. He talks about Civil War railroads, modern military railroads. Yeah, the book is out of print, as Bernie points out in the chat, but you could get a copy on. I've seen multiple copies on eBay. It's not a hard one to find, nor terribly expensive. You can pick it up for about $20, depending on your source. And he's written a few. He wrote one on steel mills. The one I do have on hand. Now this one's also out of print, but I love it. 45 original track plans. We did the Overland route from this book last year, and I'm sure we're going to be doing others. He cut. What I appreciate is that there's things that you would expect to cover as far as model railroading track plans, and then there's some really unique concepts of like, oh, I hadn't thought of a track plan for that before, and he's got that in there. Like he has a couple of Civil War ones, the Transcontinental Railroad with the Overland route, some narrow gauge, the Trans-Iranian Railroad. That one was a cool plan. Point is, he's a great designer in his own right, and a great modeler. Again, if you've never seen the Aquia line, look it up on YouTube. The modeling on it is spectacular. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap this up by way of, we're going to couple onto these SRBs, and we're going to fit what we can into here. We'll take any spacer cars that don't fit with us back to the yard, park the engine, and call it a day. Oh, but man, this makes me want to model it. This, watching a train switching around a space shuttle, that is tempting. Okay. We've coupled onto our SRBs. We can park those in suspect siding. Mr. Railyard, would I make a trains layout from Thailand? If there was A, a track plan, and B, the means to model it. As in, like, the models existed in Train Z. I'm all for doing some international subjects. I really want to do one from the Bahamas. Like, as in, I want to invent one that's kind of Bahamian themed. I'm all for doing international railroads. It's just the challenge is having the equipment for it. And now we're getting our SRBs put into suspect siding. Ah, man, I am so happy with how this turned out. I knew this would be a good one. This was one where I didn't have any doubts it would be cool, but man, seeing it has just made me so happy. Oh, let's see how we're doing. Maybe we'll fit everything in there, or maybe we'll just bring back that one spacer. I can dig that. And this is the thing, like, just keep as far as like maximizing operations. We've been running for an hour, and we've only done one run to the interchange. We still have a lot of switching to do. What I'm kind of simulating right now is we're pretending that this first SRB is getting unloaded while I'm taking care of tucking these cars into suspect siding. Um, so I need to get the spacer cars moved, but then I'd still need to actually process the rest of the train through here. Probably get those spacer cars taken out. Um, see. I think I could fit that car where that one is. Yeah, close enough. Yeah, I can push that in a little bit more. So we're just gonna move this spacer car off, move that car in, and then go back. Trains layout from Cuba would be a great one to do. Same thing, totally for it. I like the idea of doing a plantation railroad, so I think there's a good chance of doing something with a plantation railroad. Um, but specific countries, I mean, what I've been thinking is doing a sort of nondescript uh, Caribbean island that's using European narrow gauge stock because there's just not a lot of, there really isn't anything as far as Cuban narrow gauge stock for Train Z. But if I'm doing something that's kind of freelance, then I don't have to hold myself to the standards of, but that's not what they had. Here we are making the drop of the spacer. So, is there anything you guys would like? So, other than Mr. Railyard's request about something from Thailand or Cuba, other things you'd like to see me cover in a future live stream? While you type your responses, I'll point out again, in case you missed it earlier, that I do take requests when it comes to, or sorry, I take requests. I mean, yes, I'm a musician, but that's not what this is about. I take commissions. So if you like what you see here, if you're like, this guy seems to know what he's doing when it comes to pre-visualizing train layout, the ability to be able to play test an idea before committing to the build, I'd be happy to work with you, whether you need help with the actual design or you're looking for the pre-visualizing treatment here on the live stream. I'd love to work with you. I love helping people be able to overcome the obstacle of visualizing what this thing's going to look like, to be able to play test it and be able to make it happen in real life. Double YouTube fan. I can't think of any other hobby with this much variety, from running high-speed trains, fruit to market, to switching space cars, and even taking passengers through the Victorian era. Yeah, I mean, that's why I love doing the live streams with all these different layouts. Is there's so many different eras of railroading and so many different subjects. There's always going to be something to cover on this show. And I love that we can explore all these different eras and different types of equipment and different operating practices. To me, that's a key element of what makes this fun, is being able to try all these different things out. It's a great way for me, I find, to accept the fact that there's so many different things I want to build in real life, and I can't build them all, but I can build them all in a train simulator. All right, so we're just gonna get our cars tucked away on suspect sign here, and sure enough, all we had to do was take out the wind spacer, so that's good. So, it's gonna be interesting to kind of, you know, on the one hand, it's I'm looking at this and going, well, do you ever, other than from the standpoint of um, needing to fit cars into this siding, would you ever actually have to remove the spacers? And maybe they didn't, but I feel like they did. I feel like I read in one of the various documents that it was common practice after they crossed the bridge to remove the spacers before they were moving the cars into the RPSF. So we've got uh, so now is the part of the show where if I were operating this thoroughly, um, I'd move my spacer cars to uh, move these spacer cars over here. I'd finish getting these unloaded, uh, and then I would maybe call it a day, or maybe switch out for the other four. Um, but at this stage, we're just gonna go back to the yard. We're gonna store these. We're gonna put these into storage. Although I'm realizing I don't have a runaround here. I don't actually have anywhere to put them. I might have to put a switch on the back end so that we can run around cars here. Because otherwise, I'd have to run around the cars. This is actually the only runaround as part of the complex. So I'm going to add a runaround on the other side at some point. But I'll just drop them on the main. We'll put the engine back in the terminal and call it a night. Spacers get removed to JJ now. That's interesting. So that I'm intrigued that the spacers get removed to JJ because I would think that they would be required to get across the bridge, but I guess not. Interesting. Um, and how do these booster cars differ to Boeing airplane covered flats? Uh, Good question. The answer is that the SRB cars have four trucks and the Boeing cars have two. Because I gather the Boeing fuselages aren't super heavy. It's just that they're big. But they might. I think that those are essentially just 89-foot flat cars with, the special mounting brackets on the ends and like the container bit under the tail section. I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert on my Boeing flat cars. But the SRBs have four trucks because of the weight of the solid rocket boosters. That is the difference between them. Okay, so in an hour and about 10 minutes, hour and 10 minutes, we managed to bring our motive power out, grab some tank cars, grab some helium cars, bring them to interchange, switch them for SRBs, move the SRBs, begin the unloading process, store some of them, and get back to the yard. But honestly, we could have kept going. And it's just... This is the kind of thing that you look at it... I mean, the one thing you probably, when you look at it from an operational standpoint, you're trying to figure it out is, what do I do? And then you just feel like, well, is it all about just taking solid rocket boosters back and forth? But no, there's more to it than that, especially because of the low speeds. That's part of, I think, what makes this it really maximizes it, is the fact that you don't rocket along the line. You are very much having to go, and I think it's just the right size. This is what I like about the size of this plan is that I think it's just the right size. So the NASA Railroad, oh golly, how long is its main line? Its main line's not long. I want to say 7 miles. Trains, man, will know actual length. But the point is that it's not a super long main line. It's longer than what we've modeled here. But, um, but the point is that it's not, it's the kind of thing where if you're going at slow speeds, you want it to be a long enough run that it's meaningful, but you also don't want it to be a run that's boring. And I think that by just going across the bridge and then coming into the scene, perfect run length. You get that experience of like, I am moving the SRBs as a train before then you're doing all your switching with them. It's the kind of thing where could you make this bigger? Yes, but I don't know that you gain anything by making it bigger except orienting things more prototypically and giving yourself a little bit more of a run between JJ Yard and the complex. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Let us take one final overhead look at the NASA Railroad as designed by Bernard Kempinski and is built by me. Takeaways from tonight's build. Number one is just consider what you might not have considered. Read books, read Wikipedia articles, find yourself going down rabbit holes of railroad history, because there's some fascinating things out there that you just wouldn't consider that a railroad played a role in, and if you find it, you can find neat ways to model it. Because the subject is a star here. There's no doubt about that. Number two, I would say, is that yay for, I mean, I want to say yay for unique rolling stock, but I think in terms of the plan itself, it's a well-balanced switching layout. I mean, take the theme off for a moment and just think of it as switching layout. You have a good amount of industries to work if you think of each drop point as an industry. Even if you were to re-theme this, you've got the right balance of sidings, the right balance of running with this main line over here with JJ Bridge. And number three, space shuttles are cool. No, I mean they are, but yay for interchanges. Because yay for if you have the room for an interchange yard, because you get something out of being able to bring cars into and off of the world. It helps to make it feel larger and connected. It'd be interesting. I suppose if you had more space, then you could actually have the Florida East Coast make an appearance so those trains come in and drop off the cars and then disappear. That would be interesting in its own right. But the theme is the star here, and it's a good theme. I think there's so much that you could do with this being the NASA Railroad. Or if trying to do this prototypically intimidates you, then making up your own space program and the vehicles and the support buildings for it. Have fun with that. Last comments? Nope, no new comments. So with that said, you can check out train layouts that are available for download in Trains 19 at greattrainlayouts.com. If you like these live streams, you want to support the work, you want early access to train layouts, you go to patreon.com/theroundhouse. One last comment from August. Could spend literally hours going down rabbit holes on Railroad, the affiliated RMs, and their competitors. Never mind the locos rail cars utilized. Absolutely true. It's been so wonderful to be with you here tonight. It's been fun to geek out about everything NASA. This has been a particularly fun one, guys. I love doing these with you. Thank you for tuning in. Comment below if you enjoyed this or if you'd like to see something else. With that said, have a good night.